Hi, it's Jared from Strongroots Farm. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time, please like and subscribe. Today we're talking about raising cattle. So a lot of people have a lot of questions about, can I raise cattle? They're big, they're scary to a lot of people, but everybody loves beef. But there's a lot of questions because there's so many different ways that people, especially in America, are raising their beef. So recently, a few months back, I made a video on getting started into cattle farming where I went over the global market, I went over different structures of farms, I went over different farming models. That video will be down in the description, but today we're going to talk specifically about getting started with infrastructure. What are the things that you need to build or have in place before you get the first animal? That's coming up today. I'll take you through all of it. Stick around. Welcome back, thanks for joining us. Let's get going. So just like every other animal, cattle need a few things. They're gonna need food and water, that's pretty obvious. They also need security. And so with that becomes, do you have barns? Do you have fence? What types of fence? All these things. So as we get started, we're gonna talk about all of those issues. But the main question I really get is about how much land do I need? Cattle are kind of big, they need lots of grass. How much land do I need? So I'm gonna talk about that, the last thing in this video, because that's where I'm gonna get the most long-winded and have the most discussion with you about making that choice. But as we get started, let's talk about protection first. Get into cattle, the main thing with protecting our animals, keeping them safe and secure, is how to do it and reduce stress. How do we do it with a low amount of stress to our animals? If you keep them in a barn, you keep them locked up, you keep them by themselves, that is not their natural environment and they will be stressed. So with that comes a recommendation on head count. The minimum I recommend is 3 because cattle are a herd animal. There are multiple different ways to do this. You can have less if you multi-species graze, where meaning you have goats and sheep or a horse or a donkey or multiple of those things in the same pasture. You can have 1 or 2 cows and they will make that their herd. If you don't though, and you choose to only get 1 steer or heifer to raise for your own beef, and you are in a rural area with other cattle farms around you, that animal will search to be a part of somebody else's herd. They will try to leave your farm, they will fight gates and fence, and they will have increased stress. I found that the minimum number needs to be 3. 3 animals at a minimum. And so we will get into this a little bit as we talk about land, but understand as we talk about protection, everything, including our fencing, is going to be about how do we reduce stress and keep them protected. So the very first thing with protection is your fencing. We've kind of mentioned it there, but perimeter fence needs to be hard fence at a minimum. That is my recommendation. Has there been people that gets by with temporary poly fencing as their perimeter fence? Yes, but they are not beginners. They have a lot of experience, they have a lot of equipment and time and perhaps horses and other things to do. As a beginner, you should not have a farm, even with 20 years experience. I would not have cattle on a farm without a hard perimeter fenced. So there's 2 types that you can use for cattle. The first would be what you see behind me here. This is woven wire. Woven wire is more expensive, it's harder to put up, but it is a better protection for your cattle. They see it better, they tend to fight it less. And it's also good if you want to have multi-species. So it does keep out coyotes and bears and a few other things a little better with this woven wire versus a high tensile, which I'll show you. Our recommendation is woven wire on the outside of the post, meaning that is not your property, this is. So the woven wire goes on the outside, and then you have an electrical hot bumper wire with electricity in it on the inside to keep your animals in your property. I do have a complete series on how to build fence that I will put the beginning one down in the description, but if you look back in our channel not very far, that has been most of our videos. Let's look at high tensile so you can see the difference in it. Behind me here, you'll see our high tensile fence, and this is where our video and that whole series was made from. If you're only having cattle, perhaps cattle and horses, this is my preference on fencing. It is the easiest to put in. It looks the nicest in my opinion. It's the easiest to keep tight. It's the easiest to make alteration to or do work on, I like this fence the best. It's also quite a bit cheaper because you can space out your post quite a bit more. I like high tensile fence, but it does not do a very good job of keeping out other predators. If you're in an area with bears or mountain lions, this will not do a good job. They will go right through this. In our area, we fight coyotes, which don't really bother the cattle very much, but chickens and goats and other things like that, coyotes will bother them. And so if you're gonna have those other kind of animals, you might wanna think about woven wire, but you have to have good perimeter fence. The other thing with your perimeter fence is you have to have hard gates. No spring gates, no rope gates, no twine gates, nothing like that on our perimeter fence. This is my recommendation. You wanna have good protected perimeter fence, so you need hard gates that latch and chain shut. My minimum gate for a perimeter fence is 12 feet. As you can see here, this is a 16-foot gate. Putting in a small gate to go in and out is not a good idea, and you will regret it. Now, what about internal fences? We've got our perimeter roped off. They can't get off the farm or homestead. Should we have internal fences? That's up to you, and you can put this in as you grow. But one part that I do recommend, as you can see here, we have kind of a little fenced in area. This is 1/4 to 1/2 acre. This is our training pen that we use for high tensile fence, poly wire fence. We train in here brand new calves if we buy them, or brand new cows. We also use this to sort off sometimes. But an area to train your cattle, if you're gonna rotational graze with poly wire, is a good idea. So they come in here, we buy them, we bring them home, they settle down for a few days. There's water, there's plenty of grass. We set up a temporary fence just so they get to see what it is. They hit it a couple of times and test it, and now they are trained and we can put them in with the rest of our herd. So if I was gonna build internal fence on a brand new homesteader farm, I would start with some small area like this. It can be hard fenced, it can be high tensile, even if you have woven wire, but it should be something fully structured, an area to train. Another thing as we talk about fencing is your electrical fence charger. We only recommend one brand, Speedrite or StayFix. It's the same company. We have found these to be tried and true. There are other good brands of electrical fence chargers. I'm not knocking other brands. This is just the one that we recommend because we've used it for so many years, never had problems, and it's always really hot. When we talk about electrical fence, you can do it with solar. They have solar powered fence chargers. But my recommendation is that you find a way to get actual 110 electricity to your charger. One, the chargers are a little cheaper because you don't have a battery and a solar panel, but two, they always are more efficient and hit harder. So the solar panel ones are nice to move around. They're convenient to get started because you don't have to run power to a pole somewhere or run your charger, your fence right up against a barn. But when you got the ability to plug into 110 power, even if it's off of a battery backed up solar paneled off grid situation, that charger is going to be a much better charger. That's what we recommend. There's one more thing I think you need before you get started with cattle when it comes to fencing. The last thing I would recommend having done before you get the first animal with fence is a way to load, sort, and work your animals. If you need to put in an ear tag, if you need to give them medication, if you need to have a vet check your animals when you get ready to load them up to the butcher, how are you gonna load them in the trailer? That all has to be done. This is our loading and working area, and I would make some changes to this. I have a complete walkthrough video on this system that's down in the description that will show you how we build it, what we would change, and I go over some of the bare minimums you need with how to load. I do not recommend rigging up some gates, backing a trailer up, and putting them through a system that you just jerry-rigged up. It will stress them out and it will make your meat tough. The next thing with protection is a barn. Do you need a barn? This is going to depend a lot on where you are located. So here in Southern Ohio, we get quite a bit of snow in the winter, not very deep, but we get snow for about 3 months, sometimes 2 months if we have a light winter. And we have cold weather, we have freezing water. So a barn or a shed like you see behind us is a very good situation for your cattle. We do recommend from our farm and from our experience that you do have some kind of shelter for the animals to go into in the winter. Now, to be certified grass-fed, like we only feed 100% grass-fed animals, we're not allowed to lock the animals into the barn according to the USDA, if you even care about that. So our animals have the ability to come out of the shed and go out to pasture at all times during the winter, but you will find them in there if the wind is blowing hard, if we're getting snow or sleet and they're getting pounded. It's a good place for them to eat hay. It's a good place for them not to tear up my land, because there's 12 inches of gravel underneath this pad, so it doesn't get all muddied up, and that will become an issue if you don't have a place to feed in the winter. So you need some sort of structure or area or concrete or rock pad to feed in the winter. Otherwise, they're gonna be up to their knees in mud, depending on where you live and the drainage of your soil. Like I say, that could vary if you're in Arizona or Florida and not where we're at here in Ohio, but that is something you need to think about. Do you need a barn this big? No. We have some containers like this for small calves. These were throwaway containers from an industrial facility. They ship parts in these things. We simply cut one side off, and it's a place that they can go in. There are lots of yard barns and containers and old things. It does not have to be a fancy barn. The cattle do not care what the barn looks like. As long as they can get out of the wind and rain, that's good enough for them. So in my mind and in my experience, the cattle shelters or those kind of things need to check a few boxes. And so here's how you know if it's good or not. Cattle can handle the cold weather. Yes. They can handle being wet. They can handle being windy in a windy condition, but they can't handle multiple things at once. They can't handle being wet and cold below zero. So, which is hard when you get wet animals and it's cold and it's windy. Those three things together, that's a death trap for cattle. So below zero, even below freezing, they need to get out of the wind at minimum. In a wooded area, behind a windbreak, behind a barn of some sort, they can get out of that wind. Can they stay dry? If you can keep them dry and out of the wind, you will have success in almost any environment. So think about those three things, and they can handle one of them at a time. But when you start adding multiple of those events, that's where you run into problem with cattle. Next thing is food and water. So we're going to talk about water. Now we have a very expensive $1,600 automatic water here behind us. I do not recommend these for people who are getting started. They are nice in a feedlot area like this for the winter because I don't have to worry about water freezing, but they're always going to come to this and they're going to muddy up this area around it if you don't have concrete or a big rock feed bed. So I would not put these. I don't like these in areas that we're going to rotationally graze around. This is not what we use. There are multiple different ways that you can get water to your animals as they rotate, as they go through the pastures. Some things I want you to think about is 2 football fields. If your cattle are within water, within 2 football fields, 200 yards, at any point in time, you have a great system. There's no far travel for water. Can cattle travel further? Yes. But on a small scale, it makes life much easier if 200 yards is the furthest distance they are ever away from water. So you can put in water hydrants like this, poly pipe underneath the ground with water hydrants, but that can get a little bit expensive depending on how big your farm is. And of course, you can use water hoses. You can use those to transfer water. We never recommend more than 300 feet with a water hose. They can get broke. There's lots of different issues with just using water hoses on top of the ground. They don't do well in cold weather. So there's those issues with water hoses, but if you had hydrants like this or some other things, or you used poly pipe, poly plastic pipe like this here. The best pipe is HDPE, high density polyethylene is the plastic type. You can put this underground, you can leave it on top of the ground to get started, but it's best if you have this at least 10 inches below your frost line. That's kind of my standard, keeps it from freezing, and then you can bring water wherever you want throughout your pasture. Another way to save money on water as you're running it through your pasture is with Filmac quick connectors. I have some videos on just putting in water. I'll put them down in the description, and you can see the best ways. We show you the connectors, all these things, where to buy them. We give you the links. It's all there, how to save a little bit of money. The main thing I think you should know is 300 feet, that number. If you put a water line down the center of your farm or homestead and you put in access to that, whether it be a hydrant or a Filmet quick connector, every 300 feet, I promise you, you will be set up for success for years to come. And the last thing with feed is, what are we gonna feed them? So most people understand cows are herbivores, they eat grass, so you need land, you need pasture, you buy hay in the winter. We do not recommend baling your own hay as a beginner or a small homesteader. It's the equipment and the maintenance is just so high on that equipment. It takes quite a bit of profitability to ever pay for that stuff. So even if you buy old used stuff, we recommend buying round bale hay. If you have a tractor to unload that and move that, that is great for the winter. But pasture land, and we'll get into how much land you need. For grass, you will need grass. There are other ways to feed cattle though. Now we run 100% grass-fed operation here. That's how we got started. That's what we believe in. It's what we've grown accustomed to. It is more work. Doing 100% grass-fed is a lot more work than using silage, than using grain. It takes more time. There is less cost involved with it. I spend less money out of my pocket, but there's much more labor and much more attention to detail when it comes to actually doing the process right. But you could feed grass like we talked about and like we do here, and this is what we recommend, but you can feed grain as well. You can find a local grain mill. You can buy bagged feed at a TSC or big box store. You can feed grain to an animal, cattle, in a barn, not need very much space, bring them hay their entire life, and they will get fat in 10 to 12 months. Yes, it will be fast. Yes, it will cost you a lot more money because the feed is expensive, but you can produce beef for your family in a minimal area using grain. You can also do it with a silage mix. And so takes a little bit more involvement. It's kind of grain and grass and other things mixed together. It takes quite a bit of equipment, but if you had access to that, if you had a local farmer that would come in and bring you silage, or you had a way to do that, or you worked for him and he allowed you to use his equipment, yes, you could get cows fat on silage, on this mixes. None of that is what we recommend to do because we like the health of 100% grass-fed. It's what we like. The taste is phenomenal. The quality is much better. But it's a lot more time and a lot more labor, just not a lot more money out of our pocket. And we have the time, so we invested in raising our food better. That's what we do. But can it be done a different way? Yes, it can. So the last piece of the puzzle is, how much land do you need? These animals are big. They're not like a backyard chicken. That is our chicken coop over there. We do raise our own layers, our own meat birds. We have a 14 by 24 mobile layer coop. So we have some land here. We have 30 acres of our own that we own. We lease 21 more, and we are able to raise cattle. But what is the minimum? What can you get by with? If all you're looking to do is become a homesteader, you're not looking to sell a bunch of products, you're not looking to be a farmer and sell agricultural products, you're just trying to raise your own beef. How much land? What is the minimum, Jared, that you need? All right, I held this to the last because the real answer is it depends. And I hate that because I'm not giving you a quality answer, but I'll take you through some of the things you need to look at. The best answer you're gonna get for this question is finding somebody local to you that raises cattle, that have been doing it for years, not another homesteader that has one, not another homesteader that has two. Find a cattle operation, somebody that has 30 or more head, and talk to them. Why do I recommend a bigger guy that is not a homesteader? Because homesteaders only know what they know on that small scale. They know what has worked for them, but they really haven't had years of experience over hundreds of head of animals to test the different quality. That is my experience. Now, can that be wrong? 100%. There can be a guy that raises his one and he lives next to you and he does a phenomenal job and has the best beef in the world. That guy can be out there. It's just less likely than finding a guy who has been raising cattle on grass for years that can give better advice in your local area. That guy in your local area is worth $1 million. You will not find that same advice on YouTube. You will not find the same quality of information that gets you started right on YouTube. You need a local guy. But here, I'm gonna give you what I can. First off, Cattle are a herd animal. We talked about that a little bit. The minimum I recommend is 3. That way they feel like they have a herd and they stay together. On grass, if you're buying calves on grass, putting calves on grass, and you're looking to raise your own beef, it is not a quick venture. It's going to take you 1.5 to 2 years. If you buy a 350 to 450 pound calf, whether it be a heifer or a steer, or even a bull calf that you then bring home and band, it will take you that long on grass, depending on how long your grass, you've had your grass established, how well the grass is, the quality of the pasture, and the genetics of the animal that you bought. If you're doing 100% grass fed, genetics plays a higher role. You definitely don't want show cattle or big black Angus breeds that are used to being raised on grain. They will not raise out the same way as on grass. So we recommend starting with 3, and then a year later, you're gonna buy 2 more. So now you have 5 animals. So you need enough to sustain 5 calves. What will happen is you will go the next year when you get ready to butcher the first 3 batch, the first batch of 3, then you can stay buying 2 every year, and you will always have 3 to 4 on your property at all times. Now you could start with 3, buy 1 every 6 months. You can work it out, but at minimum, you need to keep that 3 there. So what I recommend for Southern Ohio, where I'm at, is 6 acres. You have 3, you buy 2 to 3 more. Next year you buy 2 to 3 more. Next year you buy 2 to 3, and you just keep that rotation going. And you can do that. You can keep them fat on grass with 6 acres. That is 1,000 pounds of animal per acre, okay? So that's about the best way to do that. If you're looking at Joel Salatin and cow days, that's 365 cow days per acre. I'm telling you, it's gonna be a little better than that, or a little worse than that, I'm sorry. Those numbers are gonna be larger because you're getting started. You have to have lots of experience in rotational grazing to hit high numbers like he does and like other people do. So if you bring your numbers down to 600 pounds per acre on good grass like we have here, you'll be much easier on yourself, you'll be much happier, you'll have much less stress. You can take it easier as a homesteader. You don't have to kill yourself. You're just looking to raise your own family, not maximize beef production. As you talk to somebody, how do you figure out the acreage for yourself? And so here's the question I think you should ask a local farmer. Florida, Arizona, Louisiana, wherever it would be, right? You're gonna ask them, how many cows do you have per acre on your pasture? And if your pasture matches their pasture, it looks about the same, they're gonna say this many acres per cow. And then you're gonna have to ask the question, do you only feed grass? So if they feed grain or they feed silage, they're gonna have more cows per acre because they're inputting nutrients into their animals off the farm. You're looking to do that with 100% grass, perhaps. If they are feeding only grass, that is a good inclination, okay? So they say 1 cow per acre, that's usually 1,000 to 1,200 pound animal. You can do that with a calf then. So if they say 1 to 1, or maybe it's 2 acres to 1 cow, then you can buy 2 acres per calf that you have. Like I say, we recommend 6. So now you would be at 12 acres in pasture. And then that still means you're buying in hay for the winter. Depending on how long your winter is, you're looking at 2 to 3 months of feeding hay. So how much hay per animal? To get through a standard winter in Ohio, let's say 3 months. We feed January, February, and March. It would be nice to feed a little bit into April. To give you enough, this is what I recommend. 1 round bale, whether that be a 5x5 or a 5x4, a good 1,000 pound round bale of good quality mixed grass hay, 1 round bale per 100 pounds of animal that you have on your farm. So if you bought animals in the fall and you have 3 500 pound animals, so you have 1,500 pounds, 15, maybe 17 round bales could get you through a winter if you have a feeder, if you can feed them correctly, if they don't waste a bunch. If you're feeding outside in the weather, you're gonna waste a bunch of hay. If you feed covered, no rain, no snow gets on that hay will last much longer. So that's what we recommend. 1 round bale per 100 pounds of cattle that you have. That is a good number to get you started, and then you can rein that in better. There are people that do much better than that. but that's a good starting number for you. Last thing your cattle are gonna need as far as feed goes is minerals. So there are things that are missing in our grasses, mineral and vitamin wise, that our cows are gonna need. There are people that get by with just feeding salt. I do not recommend that. The best system that I have found thus far, and I am in this process of inspecting and changing and doing research on this because I'm not 100% happy with it, but the best system I have found is the buffet system where you have individual minerals in different boxes. I currently have that system. We currently buy it from Free Choice Enterprises in Wisconsin. It is a great system and it works very well. But I don't know that I would recommend that for a small person with only 3 to 6 animals. It's very expensive and you'll waste a lot if you try to go with that system. So I gotta give you a different recommendation to help save you money and make it even worth it for you. We recommend for somebody small is to have 3 bins. You buy one of those 3 container mineral bins. In one slot, you're gonna put Redmond's mixing salt, just normal salt from Redmond's. In the heat of the summer, you can buy the garlic salt. It will help with your flies. The second bin is gonna be the Thorvin kelp. And I will try to find some links to some of this stuff on Amazon. Do not buy it on Amazon. It comes in small bags. It's gonna be way overpriced because of the weight. Try to find a local feed mill that sells this or a local feed supply store that can order it for you. But start with the Thorvin kelp. Try to get that in the second bin. In the third bin, I would recommend a good all-around mineral mix. And depending on where you live, it's gonna be hard to find what is the best in your area, and it's gonna change from area to area. You can start with a Rural King or a TSC mineral mix. They'll have a cattle mineral mix. Purina and Kent, I have not been happy with what I have seen from their mineral mixes, but if that's what you have access to, they make mineral mixes. We have a local company here that is making specific to our area mineral mixes. The problem with mineral mixes like that is they're not built for each specific farm based off of the soil. This land here might be low in copper, and that land over there might have plenty of it, but be low in phosphorus, and we have plenty of phosphorus here. So the minerals that they need, depending on what the land gives, is very different. So that's very hard to do. So that's why I say just give a all broad spectrum mineral mix, have the salt, have the kelp, and that's really the best way to be covered as a small person. I'm open to change, I'm open to different advice on that. It's just really hard to do a good program without testing and me being at your farm and trying to stay small and save money. Last thing I want to talk about is equipment. And so some other things that I think your cattle should have over time is shade. We have a shade cart that we pull around in areas that we don't have trees. Some wooded area that they can get into in the heat of the summer is a great, easy way to provide your animals with some shade, or you can let them go back to a barn and they can catch shade, 12 hours a day basically off of that barn. So that is one thing that they're gonna need. We talk about fly protection. I've had some videos, which I'll put down in there as well, and I recommend a fly tape. We don't spray chemicals. We don't do any of that, so we use a fly tape on their waters. I have a video about the best water to use when you're rotationally grazing. I'll put that down there. You can check that out. And so there's lots of little things you're gonna have to buy as far as that comes about, but it's all pretty small in the grand scheme of the cost. Once you get the fencing and the shelter and the grass growing, you've spent most of the money to get these cattle going. Now it's just, okay, what little things do I like and want to do better as we go along? As you come to the end of their life, when you've successfully raised your own animal, the last part is finding a good butcher. And that is a hard thing to do. You have to talk to local people that are doing the same thing and figure out where to take your animal, who that you can trust. You can spend 2 years and do everything perfect with that animal, and a butcher can mess it up in 24 hours. So finding a good butcher, finding somebody to haul them for you, finding somebody to help you out as you get to how to process it. I have videos on how to make those cut sheets and process it. You can check those out. But that is hard, and so you gotta find somebody local in that last stage. The one thing we didn't talk about is equipment, like tractors. Do you have to have a tractor to do this? So I'll be a hypocrite because we have 3 tractors, and I'm gonna tell you, you don't. You don't have to have a tractor. Does it make life easier? Heck yes. When you're moving round bales, you're gonna save a ton of money by buying hay in round bales versus square bales. Thousands of dollars, in fact. And so a tractor doesn't have to be something pretty, doesn't have to be new, just has to be able to lift up that round bale, and it can be on the back end. You can lift it up with the 3-point and back it in and throw a ring feeder over it. So you don't have to have an expensive tractor, but moving round bales, it helps to have a tractor. There are dollies that you can put on a four-wheeler and buy just the dolly and a four-wheeler. But what I have seen is people spend $3,500 on the four-wheeler for a used four-wheel drive with decent power, and then they spend another $2,000 on a dolly or $3,000 on an unroller. Well, now you got $6,000 in moving round bales. You can buy an old tractor for that, and you probably could accomplish the same thing and had more power for pulling logs and other things, whatever you're gonna do elsewhere on your farm. So that's a give and take. Look into that, make it a good decision. Do you need a tractor? No. Is it helpful? Yes. If money is not an object, make sure you buy one that has a front end loader. That is a huge asset on a farm that can lift at least 2,000 pounds. Okay, so that is what you want to look for, at least 2,000 pounds of lift capacity on the front end if you're buying something with a loader. Hope that helps you make that decision. Well, there you have it. That is the basic infrastructure you need to raise cattle. There's a lot of things there that were my opinion, and there are a lot of people that can do this differently. So do some research, but think about all the things that I said and why I said them. You need fence because they will get away. And if one runs away, it will destroy your beginning operation. It will be very frustrating. I have seen it happen time and time again as I consult. So you definitely need perimeter fence. You need some sort of structure for them. You need good food and water, however you're gonna feed them. And if you ask 10 different people, they're gonna tell you 10 different things. So continue to read, trust people. There are very good books. I'll put some of those down there as far as what we're feeding our cattle. Whether it's Salatin or Greg Judy or Garish, whoever you're gonna follow on what to feed. This is something that takes a lot of time, a lot of education, and you don't have to know it all in the beginning. There is some forgiveness, but you'll grow over time. And I guarantee you, even after 20 years, I'm still making changes. You will be as too. So don't get frustrated if you don't get it right year one. Hope that video helps. Please stick around, follow some of our other videos. We make a lot of videos about this kind of stuff. We try to show the pros and cons, how we do it. So like and subscribe if you're not following along. We would really love to have you. Until next time, thanks for watching.